Good morning, everyone. So, in today's lecture, we are going to discuss the chapter titled Lost Spring Stories of Stolen Childhood. If we look up the title of the title is made up of two key words lost spring. The word lost means something missing, something which cannot be found, or something which cannot be located. And if we look up the second word, that is a spring, the idea that comes to our mind is a time of happiness, freshness, or you can say a time of bloom. But we can say that this story has nothing to do with nature. In fact, through this story, the author is trying to expose the real picture of the unprivileged class. She, through this story, is trying to mirror how childhood should be a time for growth, education, happiness, carefree life, which is stolen from the characters. But poverty takes this phase too early from their lives. Right from the time we are born until late childhood, every child hopes for a new beginning and a bright future. But in this story that is Lost Spring, we see Anis Jung is trying to describe the pitiable condition of poor children who have been forced to miss the joy of childhood due to the socio-economic conditions that prevails in this man-made world. These children are denied the opportunity of schooling and forced into labor early in life. They are forced into labor before they come of age to support their impoverished families. The narrative exposes how poverty, coupled with societal neglect, forces children to work in a hazardous conditions such as glass furnaces in Firozabad instead of attending school. Children are often trapped in the same profession as their parents due to lack of opportunity and the influence of middlemen, police, and politicians, creating a cycle that is difficult to break. Despite the grim reality, the author portrays the spark ambitions, particularly through Mukesh's desire to become a motor mechanic and break free from tradition. Now, if we look up the story is divided into two distinct yet connected stories because both parts explore how poverty forces children to give up their dreams and live in a survival made from a young age. The two protagonists of the story, named Sahib and Mukesh. Sahib is a young rag picker from Simapuri. His name means Lord of the Universe, which is ironic as he owns nothing and lives in poverty. Mukesh belongs to a family of bangle makers in Firozabad. Unlike others, he dreams of becoming a motor mechanic. His determination is evident when he says to the author, I will be a motor mechanic. He lives in poverty, but still he dares to hope for a change. And now, looking at the first part of the story, which is titled Sometimes I Find a Rupee in the Garbage. In this part of the story, the narrator talks about a boy named Sahib. He is a rag picker whom the narrator sees every morning. She talks to him and finds out that he come from Dhaka long back when, according to his mother, his house was swept away by storms. And that was the reason why his family had come here to earn a living. The narrator asks him to join a school, but he replies that there is no school in his neighborhood. The narrator promises him that she will start a school and he is welcome there. Sahib's face lights up. A few days later, Sahib comes up to the narrator, asking her if her school is ready. The narrator realizes that promises like these are made to children like Sahib all the time and they are never kept. The narrator goes on to talk about how children in extreme poverty live and what the conditions surrounding them are like. She talks about how children walk barefoot on the streets, and the excuse given for this is that it is a tradition to walk barefoot. She thinks that more than tradition, it might be an excuse to justify a continuous state of poverty. She remembers another incident where a man from Udupi told her that he used to pray for a pair of shoes at a temple in his childhood. 30 years later, when the narrator visited the temple and the town, she could see a little boy walking in his shoes. Their prayers were answered. To give us a background of Sahib, the narrator talks about Simapuri, a place near Delhi where the rat pickers who came from Bangladesh in 1971 settled down. They have not been given any identities or permits. Only ration cards are given to them that help them eat food and vote for politicians. They are deprived of any other rights. Over the years, rat picking had become an art for them. To a child like Sahib, finding a rupee or a 10 rupee note is a big achievement for them. One day, she sees Sahib wearing a pair of tennis shoes. One of them had a hole in it, and it did not seem to bother him because it was a dream come true for a child who had always walked barefoot. Later, the narrator sees Sahib with a steel canister in his hand. She learns that he has started working at a tea stall recently and is paid 800 rupees in addition to daily meals. When asked if he was happy with his new job, Sahib looked downcast. He was working under someone and his freedom was taken away from him. He no longer had a carefree attitude, and the steel canister seemed heavier than a plastic bag that he used to carry for rat picking. Now, if we look up the second part of the chapter, which is titled as I Want to Drive a Car. So, in this part of the story, the narrator has also talked about a boy named Mukesh who belongs to Firozabad. And in this story also we get to know the harsh reality of an unprivileged class of our society. So we can say that through this part of the story, the author is trying to portray the kind of poverty that looms over the houses and streets of bangle makers in this town named Firozabad. Mukesh, a young boy from Firozabad, takes the narrator to his house where she discovers the grim conditions under which the people work. Around furnaces with high temperature, without proper air, without proper ventilation, without proper light. They do not even know that it is illegal for children to be working under these conditions. But the narrator says or observes that bangle making is done by people belonging to a particular caste specializing in it. The art has been passed down from parents to their childhood for generations. Even after the whole family worked at the bangle factory, they remained poor. Mukesh's family was not able to find a proper house yet. The same is the fate of other people living in this area. Or you can say the people who are involved in this profession of making bangles. The sorrow and desperation of being unable to feed themselves even 3 proper meals daily reduce their courage to fight against the situation. When asked why they cannot form a cooperative to improve their living conditions, they said they fear being beaten and hauled away by the police for doing something illegal. Their fathers and forefathers were trapped by middlemen. The younger generations are still paying the price for that. The bangle makers are downtrodden due to the poverty and the stigma of their caste. The narrator points out the presence of a vicious circle here, the involvement of sahukars, the policemen and middlemen who do not let these people rise up in society. Therefore, no one dares to break away from this line of profession, from this tragic world of poverty and suppression. Mukesh dreams of being a motor mechanic, and the narrator sees a flash of rebellion in his eyes. She asks him if he would like to be a pilot someday. Mukesh seemed embarrassed and replied that he was happy dreaming about being a motor mechanic. Flying a plane was a dream beyond his reach. So these were the two parts of the story that is there in the chapter, that is the stories of stolen childhood, or you can say the lost spring. So from this chapter, we can draw a conclusion that how humans create a vicious circle of suppression and torture our fellow human beings that leads to a social and economic imbalance in the society. While one class of human beings get to enjoy the benefits of human rights and identity, whereas on the other hand, another class of human being is subjected to fear of punishment, entrapment with the wrongful use of socio-economic politics. The most effective victims of these processes are the innocent children who miss out on their rights as human beings when they are employed before they come of age or are deprived of basic needs such as education, clothes, shelter, and food. These children lead to another generation of impoverished and illiterate children, a vicious circle that keeps continuing till they are obliged to accept that it is their fate. So the conclusion that we can draw from this chapter is that the author, Anis Jung, she is trying to shed light on the systematic injustice that keeps poor families trapped for generations. In Simapuri, families live without identity or basic amenities, as well as in Firozabad, the bangle industry exploit workers who are underpaid and overworked. These middlemen, money lenders, bureaucrats, politicians form a vicious circle of oppressions that robs the poor of any chance to rise. So we can say that through this chapter, Anis Jung pleads the government or the law to forbid child labor, but she says that all we can see around us that it still flourishes openly because no one is truly held accountable. So we can say that Anis Jung makes concerted effort to end child labor. She advocates for government enforcement of strict law prohibiting child work as well as enforce the education of children. Or you can say that these two children, that is Sahib and Mukesh, why they suffered in their life is because their parents were also uneducated. They don't know the importance of education in their life. They don't know that how education plays an important role, and it makes them aware about their surroundings, aware about about their rights or the things happening around. Since their parents were unaware about the importance of education, that practice continues with the coming generation. That is Sahib and Mukesh. They also, like their parents, did not get full education because of poverty. Or you can say because their parents were unaware about the importance of education, and that is the reason that we can say or we can see around us that child labor is still in practice in our society openly. And the reason is because the government, the law is not punishing those people who are forcing these young minds to work beyond their capability at such a young age instead of going to a school. So we should take one step to put an end to this practice, or you can say we should make people aware about the importance of education. Then only we can bring a change in our society, and then only we can put an end to a practice of child labor from our society. So that is all for today. Thank you so much.